Hello, my name is Phil Pereira, and I'm the Emergency Ultrasound Coordinator at the New York Presbyterian Hospital in New York City. And welcome to Soundbites Cases. In these short educational video modules, we hope to cover a range of topics in basic and advanced ultrasound applications. It's my hope that through these ultrasound videos, we'll be able to improve the clinical care that we can provide to our patients at the bedside and come to the diagnosis more rapidly than using traditional testing. So without further delay, let's get right into today's module.
Today's module will focus on vaginal bleeding in pregnancy, and we'll go through a bunch of videos showing the stages of pregnancy and as they show up on ultrasound imaging. In terms of this chief complaint, I'd like to break it down into four major diagnostic areas, the first of which is a threatened abortion, defined as the presence of an IUP, or intrauterine pregnancy with bleeding. The second main classification is an abnormal pregnancy, defined as several terms: incomplete abortion, missed abortion, blighted ovum, or fetal demise, basically all meaning the presence of fetal membranes or parts without expected fetal growth or cardiac activity. The third major classification is a completed abortion, and the fourth major classification is ectopic pregnancy, our worst scenario. Here's two video clips showing the first finding in pregnancy, and that is a gestational sac, seen to the left in long axis and to the right in short axis. Note the presence of a small dark or anechoic sac located within the fundus of the uterus. Now, the gestational sac can also be seen in a pseudogestational sac of ectopic pregnancy, and thus is not diagnostic of an intrauterine pregnancy. However, it's an early finding of pregnancy seen at about 4.5 to 5 weeks on transvaginal sonography and a week later on transabdominal sonography. So what defines an intrauterine pregnancy for emergency physician sonographers? Well, here's a video clip showing the gestational sac, larger on this video, and notice the presence here of a yolk sac, that circular round structure lovingly referred to as a Cheerio sign within the gestational sac. Once we see a yolk sac within a gestational sac, that is diagnostic of an intrauterine pregnancy. And the yolk sac is generally seen at about 5 to 5.5 weeks on transvaginal sonography and a week later on transabdominal sonography. Here's a pregnancy that's a little bit more advanced, and here we see a large round gestational sac, that dark or anechoic structure, and inside the gestational sac we can see the circular yolk sac or Cheerio sign. And let's look just to the left of the yolk sac here, and now we appreciate the presence of a tiny fetal pole. Interestingly enough, when we magnified the fetal pole, we could actually see a tiny heartbeat. Now, the fetal pole is generally seen at about 5.5 to 6 weeks on transvaginal sonography and 1 week later on transabdominal sonography. Here's a video clip from a patient who had a twin pregnancy. Notice the presence here of two large gestational sacs, and within each gestational sac we can appreciate fetal poles, and notice that each fetal pole has a heartbeat. So we see dichorionic twins, twins with separate gestational sacs, each with fetal heart activity. As a general rule, fetal heart activity is seen at about 6 weeks on transvaginal sonography and a week later on transabdominal sonography. Here's a 7-week intrauterine pregnancy on transvaginal sonogram. Notice here the presence of a large gestational sac, and importantly, note the rim of uterus that surrounds the gestational sac. We see the circular yolk sac anterior, and note the fetal pole with well-developed cardiac activity. Now we note here another structure, which is the amniotic membrane billowing out from around the fetal pole. Eventually that amniotic membrane will close down at the outer margin of the gestational sac, forming the amniotic cavity. Here's a transvaginal sonogram of a late first trimester pregnancy. And as I work in northern Manhattan, we refer to this as the merengue baby. And note the arms and legs moving fluidly to the merengue music, a sure sign that this kid will be a slick dancer.
So thanks for tuning in to today's installment of Soundbites Cases. It's my hope that through this educational series, I'll be able to get out to you a number of ultrasound learning pearls that you can take to the patient's bedside tomorrow to improve clinical care and to arrive at the diagnosis more rapidly than using traditional testing. So I hope to see you in the future as Soundbites Cases returns, and as we move on to discuss a range of interesting topics in bedside ultrasonography.